What's going on, everyone? My name is CJ, and today we are going to do the much anticipated and much requested full review of Sally the Saturn. We'll talk about some of the things I like about it, some of the things I don't like about it, and we'll also talk about some of the maintenance I've had to do on this vehicle and just some general updates. So let's get started. So if you haven't seen my initial review on this car, this is Sally the Saturn SL2. She is a 2002 Saturn SL2 with a 4-speed automatic and a 1.9 liter twin cam 4-cylinder. When I bought it, it only had 47,000 miles on it. Those are original miles. And since then, I have put a total of it is sitting at 74,000 miles. I put on like almost 30,000 miles on this car. So that just kind of tells you just how much time I've spent with it. I've had this car for almost 2 years now. So it's about time that we did a full in-depth review and talk about some of the things I like, some of the things I don't. So I wanted to start this list off with mentioning some of the things that I do not like about the car. There are actually a few things that I do not like on this particular vehicle. The first one is the ride quality. It's a smaller car, so it's got a shorter wheelbase on it, and it isn't built necessarily for the best ride quality, so it doesn't ride the best. Definitely not a Cadillac or anything like that. It rides okay enough. It rides slightly better than one of the vehicles I used to drive, which was a 1995 Plymouth Grand Voyager. So if you've driven one of those cars, this rides slightly better, which is actually a surprise given that fact. Now, you may be wondering, you've got bigger wheels on it and bigger tires. Did that affect the ride quality at all? And yes, it did. I noticed the ride quality went down slightly, but again, it's not such a big deal on the car. It's got good seats in it, so I'm not too worried about that fact. The second thing I do not like about this car is where the oil filter is located. So, as you can see under the hood, a lot of things are really easily accessible. There's your AC compressor, power steering, pump, and reservoir right there, as well as your coolant reservoir. Everything is right where it should be. However, the oil filter is located on the back side of the engine on top of the axle. So you have to kind of reach your hand up in there. It's a big pain in the butt when doing oil changes. Now, I can overlook that because the rest of the car is so easy to work on. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but down in there, that white filter, that's the transmission fluid. You can change that out actually faster, in my opinion, than doing an oil change on these cars. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But that's just one of the things I don't like, is where that oil filter is located. The third thing I do not like about this car is the interior quality and the interior plastics. Now, this is kind of more of a subjective thing. It's not too big of a deal to me personally, but there's a lot of really hard touch plastics in this interior. There's some weird panel gaps and stuff in the interior. And just overall, it's not as nice as, some other cars from this era. Like if you're looking at this versus a Honda Civic or maybe a Toyota Corolla. There's some things on the interior I don't like. And that's mainly just to do with the materials they chose in here. Now, the reason they did that was because this car was cheaper when it came out. So they had to sacrifice somewhere. And the interior is definitely where I can tell that they made a few sacrifices. Moving back outside, and most importantly under the hood, we are going to start talking about some of the things I do like about this vehicle. And number one is just how easy everything is to work on this car. Air filters right there, plugs are right there, your coil packs are right there. You have transmission fluid dipstick, and they actually meant for this car to have transmission services. As I mentioned earlier, the filter's down there, and there's also a drain bolt on the transmission, so you can change out that transmission fluid really easily. In fact, I changed the transmission fluid on this car every 30,000 miles. So the last time I changed it was at 61,000, and the next time it's due is at 90,000. Although I might get antsy and do it early because I do that a lot on my maintenance on this car. So that's really easy to get to. Your AC compressor is right here. You obviously have your power steering pump right there. throttle body, super easy to get to. This is actually comes off with just 4 bolts and just taking off some connectors, really easy to do. Obviously oil dipstick and the oil fill cap right there, or the 710 cap as you cool kids like to call it. And we also have our battery, which is right here. I do not like that it is side post. That is very annoying. I hate side post batteries. We also have our brake reservoir, which is again easy to get to. So that's something I like on this car, is it's just super easy to work on. I've done all my maintenance on this car on my own, and being a college student and just not having a lot of time, it saved my butt between classes. Also too, you have your oil, not your oil, well, that shows you how to change your oil life monitor. This car does have an oil life monitor, so it'll have a little light in the gauge cluster that'll light up. Under here, it's got clear labels to where all the fuses go, so your daytime running lights, all your relays, cooling fans, spare fuses. It's got spare fuses in here, and a fuse puller too, which is really nice to have. So lots of really nice little touches that they've added in here to make working on it just that much easier. So the third thing that I like about this car is the interior and the trunk space. For such a small little itty bitty car, it actually has a decent amount of room inside. I'm 6'2", and I actually fit comfortably, and I'm able to go on long trips with this with a decent amount of comfort. Now, if you're going like super long, 5, 6, 7 hours, you're gonna want to take a few breaks. That's just common practice. But I actually do fit in this car relatively well. I get a good, comfortable driving position. And I also really like the amount of trunk space you get on this car. So if we open this up, you can see I've just got all kinds of junk in the back of this. Now, the reason for that was, if you had watched my winter episode on things to keep in your car, I went on a winter trip of sorts. We had a really bad snowstorm move in, and I wanted to make sure I was prepared for the snow that came in. So I've got a full-size spare in the back. Now, there's also a temporary spare underneath, but I wanted to have a full size just in case. That way I didn't have to worry about messing up the spare. There is my emergency kit, air compressor, along with a bag full of extra clothes, a nice winter coat, and some batteries just in case I get stuck, so I have lights and that type of thing. So it's amazing just the amount of stuff you can get back here. I've taken this car on a few camp outs, and I've been able to get all of the camping stuff that I have needed into the trunk of this car. And if you've seen my Instagram, you've seen a few pictures I posted there where I've had stuff in my trunk for camp outs. It's just really nice to have that kind of space and options in a car that's just super itty bitty. I mean, this is a tiny little car. So now that we've gotten the things that I like about the car out of the way, now I want to talk a little bit about my ownership experience and some of the things that I ran into while owning this car. First thing I ran into that I needed to do was the transmission fluid changes. Now, everybody on the Saturn community, Saturn forums and stuff, they say to change your fluid religiously about every 30,000 miles. So that's been done twice on this car. I do oil changes every 3,000 miles. Now, some of you will say that I do that a little bit often, considering I run full synthetic and either Napa Gold or Platinum filters in this car. Try to run those best I can. The reason I change it so often is just because I want to make sure this car lasts a long time, and I don't really care to do it a little bit more often. I enjoy wrenching on the car, so might as well go out and have some fun with it, right? So just some of the overall, maintenance I've done. I have also changed out as you can see, it's riding on a Mini Cooper wheels. They are 16 by 6 by 5 inch rims, and they're riding on 205 55 16-inch Michelin Defender 2s. Now, the reason I had to put tires on this car, oh my gosh. This car, a little bit of warning, most of these didn't come with ABS. So you have to learn how to drive a non-ABS car. It took me a little while to get to it. So I did flat spot a set of tires. They were kind of junk tires anyway. They were BFGs. I've heard people have really good luck with BFGs, but that was not my experience at all. So they slid all over the place, no matter, how light I was on the brake pedal. It was weird. It could also be that they were a smaller size. I don't know. But so I had to put a new set of tires on this car. Those BFGs were installed by the previous owner. These were not the tires that came with the car originally. If you guys know what came with the car originally, be sure to click the comments and let me know, because I'd be interested in learning that. So I did change out the tires. The other thing that I had to do on this car, I had to swap out a wheel bearing, which I don't know if it was the cause of the noise or not, because it's still there. There's a little bit of a weighing noise, kind of hard to describe. Hoping to figure that out shortly. But again, it's still no big deal. It's a lot quieter with the new tires. I also had to swap out the brake calipers and the pads up front. That's a common wear item, but calipers on this car got rusted, and so the one side stuck, and I should have changed out the calipers. I listened to advice from somebody, and I ended up having to replace the calipers and, not the calipers, the pads and the rotors again. So what's on there now is Power Stop branded. They are the Z24 package, C23 or Z24 package, I believe. So that's drilled and slotted rotors, and I painted the brake calipers red because you have to do that, obviously. So those were just some of the basic maintenance items that I've had to do to this car. So now I want to discuss probably my favorite part about this car, and the reason that, you know, I really enjoy having it and driving it, and that's just the driving experience. This car is an absolute blast to drive hard. It's fun, it's nimble in the corners. You can actually pull pretty quick through a corner in one of these. I think the tires, definitely putting these wider 205s on, definitely helped out with that performance. But it's just such a blast to drive this car hard. And the good thing is you know, if you drive it hard, you're not going to necessarily bust anything because it's Saturn. They were pretty reliable cars, and this one has done really well for me. I mean, you can't, obviously, the one flaw on these cars was the diff pins, so you can't necessarily launch it hard. You can't have really, you know, big wheel spin off the line. But going through corners, I mean, it's just a blast. It's so much fun. I can't, it's hard to even describe. On a Saturn, you don't get the S-Series cars until you drive them. You just don't. I was the same way. When I first saw this car on Facebook Marketplace, that's where I purchased it. And I was just like, you know, oh, it's a Saturn. Okay, you know, what's so special about that, you know? And then I drove it, and oh my gosh, it's a blast. Now, if you're wanting to compare it to something, the Civic really is the best comparison. I've driven newer Civics. They drive pretty similar to this, but I actually prefer the way this handles versus a newer Civic. That's just my personal take. They are an absolute hoot to drive. Very, very happy that I ended up with it. So now that we've discussed some of the things that I like about the car, now I think it's time to discuss my favorite part of the car, and that's just the community. The community on this car is absolutely amazing. There's some fantastic folks out there that still love and enjoy these cars and just appreciate them for what they are. I'm gonna shout two names out to you guys. I know that they follow me here and on Instagram, so I'm just gonna go ahead and shout them out. Saturn Spotter and Dallas Moon, both of which own Saturn cars. Dallas has got a homecoming edition, Saturn SL2, and Saturn Spotter has three Saturns, an SL1, a SC2, and an SW1 or a Saturn Postal Wagon. Super, super cool guys, and I really enjoy chatting with them. If you guys want to check out some other great Saturn Instagrammers, the links will be down below, so please feel free to check them out. So they've been amazing. This car, the community is just insane. I don't think there's a single car community that's better than the Saturn car community. I'm just gonna go out and say it, because no matter what you do to the car, people enjoy it and like it. And for a lot of these people, this is one of their first experiences owning a car. You know, this is my first, you know, I own it car. You know, I can do whatever I want to it. I put the new wheels on it. I put the spoiler on it. You know, it's a car that, you know, a lot of people enjoy because it's their first. And I'm very fortunate to be able to be a part of that community and also keep Saturn alive. These were a really unique car. They were built in America. They were meant to take on the Japanese, and with their unique plastic body construction and their space frame design, it was just something different. It was something unique. And like Shooting Cars stated in his video on the Saturn SL1, it wasn't deemed financially stable enough to keep around, which is a real tragedy. It's a tragedy that this kind of thing doesn't exist. Cheap, affordable, fun transportation that's American built. It doesn't exist anymore. It's such a shame that this car wasn't allowed to live on. And there was performance editions that they were wanting to come out with, but GM said no. The one that I can think of off the top of my head was the Saturn SL3. It was based on the first gen sedan, and it would have had a 250 horsepower 6-cylinder with pop-up headlights. But unfortunately, they didn't even get to build if they did build a prototype, it's never been released to the public, and it never happened. To answer the question, and this is the main question of this video, would I buy it again? Answer is yes. Absolutely. I'd buy this car again 100%. I've loved every minute of ownership, even some of the times where I've not been happy with maintenance stuff. So some of the times where I've been replacing parts, I'm like, why was this like this? You know, it's all been worth it because of the community and the driving experience. Those two things are what make this car great. And that's why I would pay the $4,000 again in a heartbeat to buy this car. And, you know, that price has gotten me so far. I met amazing people. A lot of you that are watching this video, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for liking this car, commenting on my posts on Instagram, sending me DMs and messages about the cool things that you've been doing to your car, or just chatting about a Saturn that you've had. They're fantastic little cars, and I love this one dearly. So, if you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more content, I am planning on posting more. I know I said this in the last video. I am planning on it. If I don't post anything, send me a DM on Instagram and tell me, hey, you need to post something on YouTube. We're getting impatient. So keep me honest here, okay? I have links down below to some of my Instagram friends, some of the people that have helped me keep this car on the road and have helped me share the Saturn experience with other people. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.